But Poilievre, in his infinite wisdom, I mean, what I imagine he did is simply searched up David Aiken's name on Twitter with the name State Media and found that David Aiken had also called it State Media.
Hello, dear viewers, and welcome back to another episode of This Week in Canada. My name is Roberto Wakerel Cruz, and with me once again is Nico. Nico, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well, thank you. It's spring is coming, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Bobby, how have you been?
I've been all right. We have a short episode for you today, but it's going to be good because the topics are pretty weird. I don't know if you've heard what's going on with Dr. Seuss. It's probably the first time he's been in the news in like 60 years, but he is. After some big controversy going on in the U.S. where Dr. Seuss has been pulled from shelves by the publisher due to depictions that have been considered dated. It's caused quite the uproar, and Canadian politicians, well, one at least, has decided to make his voice heard for 2 minutes on Twitter before deleting his tweet. So, Nico, have you heard about this? Have you heard about what's going on?
Yeah, so I did a bit of research. I looked up the images which were considered to be sort of a bit distasteful. And basically, it pictured an Asian man. And, quite frankly, it was outdated. But it reminds me, I didn't grow up with Dr. Seuss. I actually grew up with Tintin because, I was in the UK. And there's one particular comic in the Tintin series, which is called Tintin in the Congo, which is just outrageously awful. It really was sort of political. Dr. Seuss, for me, doesn't have that vibe. I don't think what Dr. Seuss did was, malicious. And we have to consider all this sort of, that you can't judge someone by the standards of your own time, I think is my point. Yeah. Charlie Angus felt something similar. He took to Twitter, as Bobby said something like it really helped my imagination when I was a kid, which I'm sure it did. I quite like Charlie Angus, but I hate to say this, he believes in something, and then as soon as it contradicts the party line, like, for instance, with the Wii scandal, he drops it, does everything for the party, and never upholds his own values. Isn't that right, Bobby?
Correct. So basically, this is what Charlie Angus said. Let's put the tweet up on the screen right now. It says, Dr. Seuss created a wonderful, messy, and subversive world of images and possibilities. My childhood imagination was enthralled by, and to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street, which is the name of the book, such a tragedy to watch them take a political eraser to his legacy. This tweet that Angus posted was up for 2 minutes, where it was then deleted and not mentioned ever again. So specifically why I think Angus deleted this tweet is because of the NDP's party lines and how they stand up for Indigenous rights is one of their big things. And one of the books, I don't know the name of the book, but we can put the image on the screen, has something called Eskimo fish. And the fish are wearing kind of like a parka, kind of like the fur around their face. And you can see them, and they're called Eskimo fish, which I think is probably why he felt he had to retract it, because the NDP has to listen to the radical left college vote. And if they see that Angus, a prominent NDP member, is being racist to Indigenous people, then it's a no-go. Angus is defying Jagmeet Singh and defying the NDP. And it's a real shame because I like it. He's kind of weird. I mean, Angus is a strange guy, but I would think I thought he had some honor. I tend to think that less and less the more stories I hear about him. But it's interesting. This is a guy who is respected in the party. He came in second place to Jagmeet Singh in the leadership race.
I wish he won. Could you imagine?
It wasn't even close, by the way. I don't know if you know. It was Jagmeet Singh to 53%. And then I think Angus about 20, and then third place Nikki Aston, who is like total crazy, like really far
Corbyn
left,
supporting,
Corbynite kind of left wing, like worse than Jagmeet Singh, I think. And Jagmeet Singh to me is like a total loser. So you could just get the picture there. Basically, Charlie Angus to me, and sorry to ramble here, represents like the old NDP style.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I think Bobby, you raise a very good point. This is, I think, a instance of the NDP's two sides, the coalition clashing. You have, these old style union factory workers, the guys that they used to support. And then you have the college campuses. They can't support the liberals, these blue haired, socialists, because it's too mainstream. So they support the NDP. And this clash is, you get sort of auto workers who couldn't give a piss about any of this, who actually want to achieve things like, getting higher salaries or getting better rights. And then you have these university students who are only there for the frivolous side of politics, who don't care, how they're getting screwed over, so long as it's a woman who's doing it, a woman of colour who's doing it. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame. Come on, Angus, what are you doing?
Yeah, I totally agree. And the funny thing is about that kind of schism in the NDP party is that you have the most woke, kind of most obsessed with diversity and what's the term I'm looking for? Identity politics.
Yeah.
You have that whole group, young people. And like you said, then you have auto workers, people that work at tool and die factories who retire at 50, drink like a case of beer a day, probably a little racist, and just want representation in government for stronger unions. Going forward, I don't really see where it goes. I think you're going to see more of this new NDP and much less of any kind of honorable NDP a la Jack Layton or Tommy Douglas. And I wouldn't even be surprised if someday the NDP tries to cancel Tommy Douglas because he thought being gay was a mental disorder. Because
it's just going to happen. It's inevitable.
Going to happen. It has.
They might even cancel Jack Layton. I can really see that coming.
For being bald.
Yeah, for being bald and white.
Jamie Singh has really nice hair, and Jack Layton was bald.
Yeah.
Anything else? You got something to add on that one, Nico?
You know what I'm wondering? Do Sikh men go bald? Because they always have wonderful hair, And does it affect their religion if they are bald? Because surely they can't sort of,
You think
it's not their fault.
They're less able to communicate with their
with God.
Their God. Well, I don't think they tend to, and this is so unrelated. I don't think they tend to. I think they have pretty good hair genes, but I think even if they did, you would never see it because they don't tend to show their hair too often. So,
well, there we are.
Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, you want to move on to Okay. Those transitions are so much better than our last ones. I love them. Thank you, James. Everybody say, thank you, James, in the comments.
Thanks, James.
Really quickly, before we continue, let's give a big shout out to the Post Millennial store where you can buy t-shirts such as these ones. You can see me wearing a t-shirt in this photo. They're very comfy, very suave. You can put them over a sweater like I like to. And go to the links below where we have a variety of things you can donate to us directly. You can go to the store. Check us out. Now, let's move on to our second topic. Nico, do you want to actually introduce this one? Or
Yeah, so you may know David Aiken. He's a journalist. He's been around for a while. He used to be on the Sun News Network, remember that? Where he sort of was a small C conservative. And ever since then, as he's gotten older, he's become a liberal. He's so sanctimonious, he's joyless. He has that one defining trait of liberal supporters in Canada, which is a total and noticeable lack of happiness. And he hates Pierre Poilievre. There's been multiple instances when he's going after Pierre Poilievre. This is only the most recent one. Essentially, he took a screen grab of a Facebook post that Pierre Poilievre made, where he called the CBC state media, which is what we do. They are state media. They're sponsored by the state. They wouldn't survive without the state. It's just a fact. But David Aiken took particular issue with that. He said that it was inciting a mob. And he said this is, typical Trump-like politics. But Poilievre, in his infinite wisdom, what I imagine he did is simply searched up David Aiken's name on Twitter with the name State Media and found that David Aiken had also called it State Media.
So let's put those tweets up really quickly. This is the first one. This is David Aiken saying, oh, look how evil Poilievre is. Look at the size of the mob that he's been able to garner there. And then here's Poilievre swiftly pointing out, this is David Aiken's tweet, saying, huge CBC fail, state broadcaster, which is the whole point of Aiken's argument, cuts to Mambridge newscast, blah, blah, blah. There's a few things about this that kind of upset me. One, David Aiken, that is so stupid. I think who doesn't know what Poilievre is talking about when he says state media? We have a state broadcaster. It's the Crown broadcasters, the CBC. I don't know how much more basic than that.
It was just an attack. It was a total attack. And the thing is, he showed who he was, which is just a member of this cast of journalists.
Bitter.
Yeah, just liberal sort of, this is politics. Don't engage in politics on these easy sort of slaps, He needs to cool down. And I think, honestly, he's so protected because he's been around for so long that he can actively sort of he's an activist. You know,
Yeah.
he's campaigning by doing this. Have a bit of integrity, Aiken. Come
and
on.
Just really quickly, the last thing that really bothered me about this is just saying, check out the shares/size of the mob. Essentially, just getting mad that Poilievre is popular and
Yeah.
resonates with a lot of Canadians, as opposition party politicians are allowed to do. The opposition is trying to get into power. They're allowed to have a wide base of people that they appeal to. I don't really. This is such a bonehead
Bizarre.
Neanderthal take by David
Yeah.
Aiken.
And he
who
didn't
is-
apologise. He didn't talk about it after that.
No.
He just sent that tweet and then left it, in spite of the fact that Pierre Poilievre made him look quite silly.
He just got pwned. And Global
Pwned.
News, bottom of the barrel. I sometimes watch their newscast and it just looks awful. I don't know if we can show any of their footage on screen, but next time you watch Global News, just look at the graphics. It looks like a Turkmenistani news broadcast about the death of the president. It's always miserable. It looks like a fourth grader did it. Anything else?
I think you covered it pretty precisely.
Let's go to the outro. Thank you for viewing, your viewers. That was a fun episode. I felt like that was all right, eh, Nico?
It was a pretty good episode.
That was a good episode, I think. Anyway, you guys should check out the links below at the bottom. We have t-shirts, like I said. You can follow our mailing list, and you can support the Post Millennial directly by giving us a donation. You can also Google us, check out our Patreon. We got tons of comments. Also, give us a like, subscribe. We have an email. We still have an email. I just checked it for the first time in a couple weeks. It's bobbyandnico@gmail.com. Thank you for viewing. Nico, is that all? Let's say bye.
Bye-bye.